Well, here we are back on the front porch of my house, overlooking the hot tub and the biggest tree on our property back there. And this story is going to take us back a ways. Probably I might have been 18, and we were hanging out at my buddy's house, and another friend drives up in his, not brand new, but new to him, Austin Healy. And man, it was a sweet car. And in those days, British Racing Green was the color. And this was British Racing Green. Man, it was one car and a half. And he says, "Hey, let's go for a drive." And we piled into the car. There was four of us. Bob Swain in the front seat, and Bob's girlfriend in the back seat with me. And and Austin Healy, the back seat is not much of a seat. It's just basically, we had to turn sideways and our knees touched. But, we were into having fun. And so we took off from Hayward, and it's about, 10 miles to Niles, which is this little town. And it actually was famous for being Hollywood back in the turn of the 19th century. 18th? No, 20th century. Anyhow, back in the 1918 and such, around those dates. But anyhow, so Niles, the town of Niles, sits right at the base of the canyon. And the canyon is like kind of this windy little canyon that kind of goes for, about 10 miles, maybe 15 miles back out into Livermore Valley. And, there's, being the age that I was, and as I said, at 18, I had driven that canyon many times as fast as I could go. Man, I was just, sliding around turns and having a hell of a good time. But this Austin Healy was, it was a car and a half. It could hit those turns just going 90. And we were just having a hell of a good time sliding around turns and back and forth and hearing the wheels squeal and, not thinking anything about it. And I'm sitting in the back seat, and he comes around this one turn and hits that turn going just a little bit too fast and slides. Now, it turns out that one particular turn was pretty much a hairpin, and it made a left, and there was a bridge. And, so he made that left turn, and he lost control, and that Austin Healy just slid around, and the back of the Healy hit the bridge, right? And, I'm sitting in the car. The bridge is right here, right next to me, and he slams up against the bridge, and the Austin Healy slides the other direction and goes back into his lane as a big semi just comes straight by. And, but he can't regain control because he's completely lost control at that point. And so the car hits the other side of the bridge and starts to come back and begins to flip. And now I'm in the right-hand side of the car. So the car begins to flip, and it's going to toss me over the side of the bridge. And I know what's down on the bottom of that bridge. And it's not a nice big pool of water. It's rocks, and it's about 40 feet down. And I'm thinking, holy shit, this is it. I'm done. And the car just, you know how everything is slow motion when that kind of thing takes place. And the car's beginning to flip, and I'm at the top of the flip, and I'm looking out over the side of the bridge, and I'm seeing the rocks down below, and I'm just like, I'm checking my, all of my history. And at the last second, the tire blows, and the car jams and throws me on the ground. And I land on the ground right on my face. and roll out and hit the side of the bridge just as another car zips by in the other lane. And, and I hit the side of the bridge, and I'm just kind of laying there on the semi sidewalk. It must have been that wide. And a couple of cars go by as his car is now on its top and sliding to a stop in the middle of the bridge. And I check myself, and I'm reasonably okay. I stand up, and I run to the car, and by that time, all the traffic has stopped. And I run to the car. Hey, this branch is starting to get to me. Anyhow, I run to the car, and Bob Swain, who was in the front seat, got trapped in the car. And the car just, slid. There was no roll bars or anything like that. Nobody had seat belts. And he was under the car. And so there was probably, I don't know, there might have been 20 people at that point. And literally, everybody just grabbed the car and picked it up, and Bob worked his way out. And he was pretty messed up. His knee was completely wiped out. He actually spent the next 6 months in the hospital. But, I was okay. And so here's Bob laying on the ground. They put the car back down, and Bob's girlfriend and myself, we didn't get hurt a bit. Jim, who was the driver, didn't hardly get hurt at all. Just Bob. And so he's laying on the ground, and he's literally bleeding out. And this guy comes up, and he's, has a blanket, and he says, okay, put it on the wound and really press down and hang on to and that way he won't bleed when the ambulance gets here. Now, that was before cell phones or anything like that. So somebody had to literally drive out of the canyon to make a phone call. So we're talking at least a half an hour before an ambulance shows up. Ambulance? Ambulance. Anyhow, so it turns out that the guy who brought the blanket, or I think it was a towel or something like that, to create the compress, was my dentist. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and I said, "Oh, doctor," he goes, "Shh." And he disappeared into the crowd, and, never saw him again. Well, except as a dentist. So I went to, the ambulance shows up. We all pile in the ambulance. It turns out that I've got a cut underneath my eye. They had to put 4 or 5 stitches in it. And that was pretty much it. I was a bit banged up here and there, but that was pretty much it. And as I said, Bob Swain spent 6 months in the hospital. Then the very next day, I was arrested and taken to Agnew State Hospital as a mental patient. Ha! And that story, you either already have seen it, or you're going to find it and see it on, I think it might be on the other channel, the Machine Shop channel. So this is Nick Collier. This was fun.